Hello Jaguar fans, this is my second video, first earlier today on a Jazzmaster. This is a Daphne blue Jaguar with painted headstock. It was a special run that was commissioned several years ago by Wildwood Guitars and Dave's Guitars, and looks like a very fine guitar. The problem has been, however, the standard problem of Jaguars and Jazzmasters. The bridge makes it difficult to get the string height where it should be. The strings continue to buzz and pop out of those grooves. So the first step I tried was to put in the buzz stop, and I'm not sure if that did anything. It kind of looks space aged. Then after a while I wondered if the frets needed to be plecked. So I found this wonderful technician at Wolf Guitars in Jupiter, Florida, Jan Walker, and she plecked the frets, and I noticed when she reset up the guitar she used these tools, which I have found very helpful, which would be the neck relief gauge and the string height gauge and the neck radius gauge, all appropriate for this guitar. Well, even with that type of great setup, there was still a lot of buzzing. Then I stumbled onto the solution, which came from Minneapolis, Minnesota, in terms of the Majesty bridge and thereafter the Majesty Tremelo tailpiece, which is not yet unwrapped, because at the same time as the bridge issues, the tremolo flopped all around. You all know about this, and fell out and was too low to serve the purpose that it was intended to serve. Since these are my favorite guitars, I desperately sought a solution to these areas, and the solution came again from John Woodland, who is one of the authors of the Paul Bigsby story. He created this wonderful tremolo tailpiece where the arm does not fall off, does not wiggle all around, and the Mastery bridge, which resolves all of those issues that we discussed as far as buzzing and string height adjustment. So now we're going to take this guitar apart, take off all the Fender parts, take off the buzz stop, and put on the Mastery products and turn this into a useful, valuable instrument. This guitar is set up with flat wound 11 gauge strings, which I seem to feel are the best for Jaguars and Jazzmasters in my opinion. And the strings will be saved because they're relatively new. The neck relief gauge, which I need a couple of hands to use, therefore I did it before starting to film this, showed a neck relief of -10, which means that the neck is too concave, therefore it needs to be tightened. That's done by loosening the neck set screws somewhat, popping the neck forward and adjusting the screw down at the bottom, which is hard to get to without popping the neck up. So that will be done, and then we will replace the bridge and the tremolo tailpiece. The original mute plate does not have holes drilled large enough to accommodate this bridge, Therefore, JW will solve that issue by sending a mute plate with the larger holes that fits perfectly. And then from Home Depot, the usual sponge weather stripping will serve as the mute pad. That is the project for now, and I will get started with the behind the scenes repairs and pick up the video as we go along. The tools needed are an electric screwdriver and the very useful EARNIE ball string winder. And if we start with that, and I'll just pause the video and do all of that. The strings will be removed. They will be threaded through the existing tailpiece, which will be then taken off, as well as the buzz stop taken off, the bridge and the tremolo piece removed as well. It certainly would be easier to just cut the strings rather than thread them through, but they are good strings, and at whatever the cost is, $15, $17 a set, they can be saved. What happens here is that the bridge just lifts out, exposing the mute plate, which is removed by just taking out these two screws. Those screws are removed and there's no need to touch that middle screw. Again, the holes here are too small for the Mastery bridge setup, so this plate will be replaced by the new one. Whenever I do this, I find the plastic that didn't come off from the pick guard when the guitar first arrived. Okay, at this point the screws have been removed and this should be ready to lift off, which it does. Come over here, and somewhere right about there is the ground wire. So now we're ready to go with new bridge, new mute plate, new tremolo tailpiece. Before that, I just need to pop up the neck and tighten up the truss rod. That's done by taking these screws out somewhat, not completely, and then just allowing the neck to pop up enough to get to the adjustment screw. There's what that looks like, so it can be tightened up. And on the neck relief gauge, when strung at the 6th fret, we want the relief to be about -2. Right now it's about -10, which makes the action a little bit high. Okay, that's tightened up, which can be a trial and error type of issue because you have to measure it after the strings are on. So it could take a couple of readjustments. Next step is to put on the mute plate. Trying to screw it down as tight as it'll go, but yet still pop up and down so that it allows the bridge to seat as low as possible. That should be good. The Mastery bridge comes with 3 Allen wrenches. We start out with the middle one to just loosen these post screws just slightly. that done, the bridge is now ready to be seated, and it just nicely fits in there. And now we just tighten it up again. Now we're ready for the tremolo tailpiece. Solid, beautifully made, stainless steel, high gloss. An arm that doesn't flop around. The arm just stays where you put it. And if it doesn't, you can get down under there and just adjust it right here to keep it. High quality spring. Does everything this unit was intended to do, without falling off and flopping all around, without being too low to serve its purpose as the original equipment was. Looks good, and notice there's no trem lock or buzz stop needed. Look how that sits there. Now we'll just put the screws in, which will be screws supplied by Mastery Bridge. There they are, ready to go, waiting for the electric screwdriver. Let's do that. That's done, no scratches, in perfectly. Now let's get the strings on and see what we got. Here's the finished product. Wow, that looks good. Now in the final setup to adjust the string height, another gadget from Stuart McDonald is very useful, which are these glasses, which allow you to better line up the string gauge. Let's see if we can do that. So basically this is put at the 12th fret, and then you just adjust the string height on the treble and bass side. Now Jen tells me it should be 0.65 to 0.75, but for me that's a bit too low, so I'm happy if I get it to 0.8 or so, and maybe a 0.9 on the bass side, but that's personal preference. But these gadgets are extremely useful to figure all this stuff out. Also, the curvature of the neck should have the strings following this curve, and pretty much the Mastery Bridge takes care of all that on its own, compared to messing around with those little screws that you had to do before. So you really don't need this with that bridge. So that's about the setup of a Jaguar putting on the Mastery Bridge, the Mastery Tremolo tailpiece, taking off the buzz stop, using 11 gauge flat round strings, using the neck tension relief gauge, the EARNIE ball winder, and if we wanted to change the tip on there, AW also gives these nice polished stainless steel tips that just screw right on there. And the final thing I need to do, actually I should wait for that, is put on the strip, so I will do that. Now I think we got it. The mute pad is on, tremolo's on, new bridge is on, string height's adjusted. The truss rod adjustment was at -2, and that's the key. It should be about -2, -4 to -2, but probably -2. So, thank you for watching this. I hope this helps set up Jaguars and Jazzmasters with the new tools that are available from Mastery Bridge in Minneapolis, Minnesota, created by the very brilliant John Woodland, who, in my opinion, resurrected these great classic guitars and made them all that they can be. I'm going to go play this one, and thanks for watching my second video.